We are very honored, very delighted to have Professor Martin Puchner here on our set. I would like to welcome you to Bhutan and welcome to the Drukyul Literature Festival 2025.
Thank you so much. It's been fantastic to be here and to be at the festival and see a bit of the country, which is just beautiful.
Before we start, or before we delve in deeper into the questions and the insights, would you like to share a little bit more about yourself to our viewers?
Sure. So I'm a professor at Harvard and I teach literature and culture. I often have an interest in technology. So for example, I'm interested in writing technologies from the invention of writing 5,000 years ago all the way to the internet. Right now I'm also interested in AI. I create chatbots that allow you to talk to historical figures like Socrates or Confucius, and trying to figure out how to use AI to make history more exciting and interactive.
You describe literature as the DNA of the culture, and in a world increasingly driven by AI or algorithms, what do you think happens when stories are automated?
It's speculation because we don't really know the consequences, but you're right. It's the first time in human history. So far, storytelling has been a human endeavor, right? We all tell stories individually and collectively. I think that we are, in a very deep sense, storytelling creatures, we humans. We tell stories about where we come from and why we are here and how we are connected to others and connection to the past and the future. And yeah, now suddenly there is this thing that also tells stories. It's of course based on all the stories we've been telling and all the written stories that have been fed into AI, but it seems to be able to tell stories, and it's eerie. It's kind of, because also it's so fast, right? You push a button and then there's a story. I think that many writers, and in some sense I tell stories in my books, and it's clear that we will be using AI for storytelling, but maybe for research or to get ideas or to figure out a character, and I think that's okay. We can use this tool just the way in which writers in the past used libraries or used the internet or radio to get ideas. But yeah, if it's just AI producing stories, that's a little bit freaky.
How do you see the role of storytelling evolving in years, in generations, without losing its human core?
Right. I think it's clear that what AI can produce stories, but I think it doesn't need to tell stories, right? We humans need to tell stories. There's a reason why we tell stories. I call it know why, because we ask these why questions, and AI doesn't have why questions, we do. So this is why I also think that we humans will continue to tell stories. Maybe we will, use material from AI. It's a powerful tool, but I think ultimately we tell these stories to ourselves and to each other. I think we also use different media, right? So originally there's oral storytelling, then we use writing, then there are new medias. Radio is a powerful storytelling medium, television. Social media, there are lots of bad things about social media, but there are also storytelling media. So I think we can embrace new media, as you say, as long as we remember why we tell stories.
You have been around the world, telling stories and listening to different stories. Did anything about Bhutan, Bhutan's literature or cultural landscape surprise you or resonate with you?
A lot of it resonated. I've long been interested in Buddhism, and I've written a little bit about Buddhism and how Buddhism spread. I've been very interested in Buddhist monks carrying scrolls from India to Tibet, from Tibet to Bhutan, to China, to Korea, where I just spent a month, to Japan, and so on and so forth. And so it's been wonderful to travel to monasteries here to see how they house the scrolls, the sacred scriptures in the monastery. The most striking thing for me has been the prayer flags in the landscape, because I feel like, well, the landscape is stunning, but then there is this cultural dimension, this religious dimensions, where literally there is writing in the landscape. I look out the window and I see prayer flags, and I think, oh, so this is a sort of cultural dimension to the landscape, and that's something that struck me the most, I think. You know, the other thing I've been struck by how many people I've met, how they tell the history of Bhutan as one of very careful and deliberate and thoughtful modernization, not panicked, not extreme, but very step by step. And this is something that I found very impressive and interesting. I don't know many places where that is the case.
Let's get back to AI. As you were talking about chatbots, you have been creating chatbots for many famous philosophers. I have a question. I was wondering if you were asked to develop a chatbot from any Bhutanese figure, who would it be and why?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, you know, in order to construct a good chatbot, you need a good body of texts, of script, some form of scripture. So I think I don't know enough which of the important figures, I mean, they're all connected to scriptures, right? But which ones would have a good either texts written about him or biographies or their own writings. So I think this is how I would select them, because the better and broader the text basis, the more specific and realistic and convincing the chatbot. So this would be a sort of technical approach. I would ask you, who do you think would have a sort of distinctive body of texts?
I think the Great Fourth.
Yes. Oh yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that would be a great choice.
In the spirit of the Great Fourth's wisdom of balance, what do you think is the role of literature in helping societies stay rooted in their identity and still embracing change?
I think literature is a great vehicle for that balancing act that you describe in that question, because stories come often from the past, the materials comes from the past, characters come from the past, certain phrases, certain language, all is part of a cultural inheritance. But with a story, you can also add new twists, you can modernize it, you can set it in the present, or you can set it in the past. And this is a dynamic I've studied all over the world, where sometimes I call it a recycling project. Literature is a recycling project, where often all these elements from the past, from the tradition, are put together in a new way. And so you take a new step with that material, but it is rooted. The material, much of the material, comes from the past. And I think that's the great power of storytelling. And this is why it's so wonderful that there is the Bhutan Echoes.
This will be another question from my side. It's a personal question. Do you have any advice for our young storytellers in Bhutan?
I think they should, I have heard a lot, and I understand people talk about worries, that you have these two large neighbors, you're a small country, about that especially young generation may be overwhelmed by materials from Bollywood to K-pop to Hollywood. But I've been so struck by the distinctiveness of Bhutanese culture, and I think it's a great gift and resource. So my advice to young storytellers is to be self-confident, that by being Bhutanese and having access to this culture, you are in an extremely strong place to tell your stories, and I think the world will be eager to listen.
Thank you, Professor. It has been a very insightful conversation. Thank you for your time. We are very delighted to have you on our set.
Thank you.